Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Welcome back to another episode, Culture Content. Follow me, Jay Doran _ the Culture Man, where we release short clips on leadership, business, so many other topics around culture, why it matters. Today, I want to unpack one of the topics, which is why 80% of life success is just showing up. Don't quit. If you're listening to this right now, don't quit. Don't do it. You're listening to this because for accountability. Uh, In the absence of responsibility is a necessity, right? Or necessitates accountability. Out, some outside force presenting you with feedback, presenting you with information to reorient yourself. If you're listening to this, you're seeking something, you're searching out information, you're trying to answer a problem you may not even know exists. You may be thinking it's one thing and it's an entirely another thing. Funny aside, one of our guests, or someone very important to the Culture Matters podcast, I think it's episode 49 or 51. The real Brad Lead says 72% of statistics are made up on the spot. That's what I thought of when I heard this 80% of life success is just showing up. Is it 80%? Is it 100%? Is it 1%? Is it 81%? Is it 80.9%? It's an important thing. Forget about the percentage. Showing up might get you through whatever it is you're going through. I did not want to record this episode. I did almost everything possible this morning not to do this. I was going to record on some other topics that were of interest, but so many other things are in my mind. Great reasons, rationalizations to not record, to not step up, think, write down my thoughts on this topic or others. But of course, this one stuck out. It's what I was struggling with this morning. And in the absence of the ability to respond, it necessitates accountability. I'm accountable to my word that I've given, to the goal that I put out, to the expectation that I set, to everyone that is paying attention. And I better keep my commitment, my commitments. If you're listening to this, don't quit. I think a business might start irrationally. And, why do 80% of businesses fail? That's another statistic. And apparently 80% of what's left also fail. 80% of what's left fail as well after a 10-year period. So 80% are not in business in the first 5 years, and the 80% that's left, they also go to the wayside in that following 5 years. Some of the research says that ultimately it's stick-to-itiveness or grit or um, a resistance, a resilience. Resilience is the key trait of entrepreneurs. Resilience. Well, I wonder why. Well, because if a business starts irrationally, it's based on an ideal, it's based on a vision, it's based on something that's not yet, doesn't yet exist. There's going to be hope, there's going to be excitement, there's going to be momentum, there's going to be euphoria. There, it could even start off really well, really successful. But then there's going to eventually be a wall or a downturn or limitations. Yeah, like there's going to be data to show anyone that starts something that it's either not working or it may not work. And if we pay too close attention to reality, we may convince ourselves to give up, to quit, to stop based on the feedback of the market, the feedback of our peer group, the feedback of our family, the feedback of everybody that's operating from reason, from reality to give up. So it's no wonder that entrepreneurs convince themselves, we convince ourselves of stories that may or may not be fully true in order to be resilient, in order to not give up, in order to not quit. It's no surprise that in the entrepreneurial world, there's this narrative, there are these narratives around not listening to people, charting one's own path, getting rid of the, the naysayers, the critics, the haters, whoever. Because how else? How else are you not going to quit? And this is my challenge. I guess there's a difference between continuing out of character and continuing out of contempt. That's the word that comes to mind. I don't know if the word, if it actually works, but I'll look up the definition here. Are we continuing out of character? Or are we continuing out of contempt? Contempt definition. The feeling that a person or thing is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Am I continuing out of character? So I'm facing reality, or I'm facing the feedback of the marketplace, which is a part of reality, others, which is a part of reality. It's not the whole story, but it's information that adds to my overall picture of reality. Am I facing that feedback and moving through it and taking what's good and separating what's good from what's not helpful? And that has a relationship with my awareness. Like, is it backwards? So maybe what's not helpful is helpful. What's not, what I think is helpful is unhelpful. And this idea of operating out of character, operating in contempt, because if 80% of life success is just showing up, part of that is resilience, right? And the statistics say, or the research demonstrates, that entrepreneurs that are successful with that common trait is resilience or stick-to-itiveness, that, never give up, that continuation. Well, that makes sense over time because ultimately there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. If it starts irrational, and think about this, if we get enough data over time, the euphoria ends, the narratives that started, they can wane. We can become more aware and less um, wrapped up in the originating story that started the business. That can have diminishing returns on actually the work and working and sacrificing and laboring because a lot of it doesn't even make sense. It's like a feeling. It's like an intuition. It's like a you know it's this sense of purpose that seems more important than anything in the world. Balance, family, friends, all these things, experiences. And then you see entrepreneurs hit this wall where they either quit because what's irrational becomes rational. All that data is coming at the entrepreneur that is telling them, hey, this is not gonna work. Or it's like their entrepreneur becomes very successful and is looking back and saying, why did I do that? Where did the time go? What happened in my life? And, you know, it's because the entrepreneur was in this state of irrationality for a long, elongated period of time. And that was part of what led to that tremendous amount of work and work ethic and stick to itiveness. But like, is there a synthesis? Does it have to be? Does it have to be alienating? Does it have to be, you know, overly sacrificial? And I think the answer to that lies somewhere in between this continuing through resilience out of character, out of contempt, So contempt, the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, worthless or deserving scorn. He showed his contempt for his job by doing it very badly. Um, Scorn, disdain, disrespect, depreciation, disparagement, denigration. This psychological state, this lack of, so the opposite is respect. I've observed, like, through listening and being, in work in the field, can be an easy attraction, or very attractive to the entrepreneur, as a way of maintaining the quote unquote mindset or lie set necessary to be accountable by the market. So the entrepreneur has not yet developed a responsibility or an ability to respond to conflict through an awareness, through a honed empathy, through a realized compassion, through reason and clear thinking, but through anxiety, through contempt, through narratives of, it's hard to articulate, but ultimately, if 80, yeah, if 80% of life success is just showing up, how do we actually get ourselves to show up? How do we actually get ourselves to show up? Before before there even is a business, we're going to respond to the marketplace, lack of relationships, lack of resources, lack of those outside of us understanding and grasping our reasons, our vision, what we are seeing the future to become. That alienation can really drive the founder, drive the entrepreneur. Once there's an organization to be responsible for, a lot of what worked in the beginning has to cast away or be broken and unlearned in order to rise above and bring the organization to the next level. And not everyone figures out how to do that or is able to do that or desires to do that. But I guess it's obvious that, to me, that a big part of life success is just showing up. Like I had to hit record this morning just to show up. And of course, showing up is the difference between success and stagnation, in the sense that, you know, we're all fighting the forces of regression. We're all fighting the forces of inflation. We're fighting the forces of diminishing returns. We're competing the, against everyone else that's sacrificing and putting energy in the game at varying capacities. You know, Others are sacrificing more, are capable of more. It's a game of talent, competence, and time investment. You know, how competent am I actually? How much time have I actually put in? How much talent do I actually have? Each of us are in our own walk with the questions that I just posed, and we all start the game, the race at different places. Some farther ahead, some farther behind, with different degrees of talent, uh, competence based on talent and time. And then, of course, time, how long we've been at it, how long we're willing to give it each day, each week, each month, each quarter. I can't understate the, the reality of competition. And I guess, and then it goes back to the original statement, which was, a business starts irrationally. Even if we're being rational, there's an irrationality too. It's an idea of what's possible. It's a vision of. It's a thought of. It's not real. It's a potential of real, and it's a story. It's like it's a narrative. And so if we start the business, we're not starting the business completely in doubt, but there's degree of doubt. But there's got to be a greater degree of hope or idealism to start. Once you do the business for a long enough period of time, you're getting data that's telling you you might be wrong or that you should quit or give up. And then there are other people, of course, that aren't doing it, that it wasn't theirs. They're going to tell you to quit and give up because, and not because it could be for a whole range of reasons, but good and bad. And it's no wonder that entrepreneurs create these narratives to separate themselves with other people. Because if you're too rational, you might actually quit. And in the beginning, if a rationality drives it in the beginning, it can't drive it forever because once there actually is something to be responsible for, it's not just vision, it's not just the time and space of the founding consciousness, but it's a time and space of many. It's there's got to be responsibility proportionate to the breadth of the organization. Now, at the same time, we don't want to lose that vision. We don't want to lose that irrationality. We don't want to lose that spirit, and that's the spirit of the founder. How do you maintain that? Well, that goes back to the history. Now at that point, the story of the company, the history of the company, what the company stands for, why it exists, and are there people that could carry that flag and what drives them, and how are they incentivized to drive that flag? Life is about showing up because you never, that's the whole thing is I work for you. If this is the message you need to hear today, to not quit, to keep showing up and to do what you need to do, I'm accountable to you. Your degree of responsibility has a relationship with what you take away from this conversation. So I better show up and do this damn episode because I work for you. You're the customer. You know, I work for you. You're the customer. The product is the quality and quantity and the contextual alignment between what you're looking for and what you get. And I better show up for you to get what I want. We're in a partnership. Before they're shareholders, the shareholders are the customers. When they stop paying, whoever's in benefits from the profit, they're done. And of course, those that are helping fulfill and expand the organization, the employees, they're done. Follow me, Jay Doran _ the culture man on Instagram. Think about if you're operating your business out of contempt versus character. I didn't even look up character, but let's character definition. Character, the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. Your constitution, your psyche, your essence. When I say character, I'm thinking of like virtue. So let's look up virtue. I guess the difference between a good and a bad character, showing high moral standards, goodness, morality, righteousness, ethicalness, integrity, dignity, rectitude, honesty, honor, nobility, respectability, decency. Yeah, the opposite would be vice and equity. So I'm speaking more virtue versus contempt. We'll have to talk about that in another episode of the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks for listening to this episode. 80% of life success is just showing up. Please leave me a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and I will see you next time.